Hello again. This is really going to be, I think, a pretty fun video, and maybe we can put it under the sort of the chapter of let's celebrate our subscribers and our milestone here. But this is going to be about this incredible experience I had last week with a friend of mine who was a senior executive at a spirits company, of course, and had been given a gift from the company. Had collected a whole bunch of extremely rare malts in these little, containers, little jars that are tiny, but each one of them has a fortune's worth of rare spirits. So we had our tasting, and we had quite a few, but I'm just going to do this in the following way. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened. So this is what we did. We had nice little sort of bites to eat along the way. We spent a few hours commenting and tasting all these different malts and a whiskey. And, but I'm not going to go through every single one of them. I think I'm going to do a slideshow of some of the ones we went through. Then I'm going to taste with you folks, maybe the 3 or 4 that were the most interesting to me and the most sort of awe-inspiring. And then, so we'll have here, we have this intro, then we're gonna have this sort of slideshow with comments. Then there's gonna be a live video at the end with the ones that I really liked the most. So here we go. Well, as I said earlier, this was the setup. So you've got all the bottles lined up. You've got some of the sort of bits of and bites and the glasses that we're going to use during our tasting. So now we jump into the details. This one is from, as you can see, Glen Garioch. And again, the pronunciation, forgive me for that. A small property, I have never heard of them, but it's part of the portfolio. It's distilled in 1959. It's a 62-year-old malt. Not a lot of alcohol, in the low 40s, and not peated. But again, it was just, not again, because I'm going to talk about this later, but anyway, it was incredibly sharp and clean and fresh, very surprising for such an old malt. It was Bourbon cask age, but it still has a lot of fresh notes. So not much of the dried fruit or the caramel note, primarily fresh, young spirit, and that was very good. Next, we have a pair of Auchentoshan. These guys are lowland, so not very far from Glasgow, into the heart of Scotland in 1966 and 1972. The 66 was 15 years old, and it was really sweet, with apricots, bourbon feel, good alcohol, even though it was only about 40%. And the 72 was 49 years old as opposed to the 51, but it had more alcohol. We're talking 50% here. So more viscous, more creamy, no sharpness, no angles at all, a nice taste of almonds, and overall, again, a little bit sort of gourmand as a kind of a delicious treat. This next one here is very interesting. It's pretty young, high alcohol, 56%. It's called a floor malt by Bowmore. So everything's done on the floor right there. The malt is mixed there, it's malted there, it's wetted there, and it's kind of a very artisanal process that used to be the case everywhere, but not so much anymore because sometimes it's shipped from somewhere else. So that's what really makes it interesting. Very young, it's a few like red fruit, which is hard to believe, like strawberry, very light peat. It's just a delightful kind of aperitif, let's say, that can be had a lot more easily than others. I wanted to include this, although frankly, neither of us really liked it. But this is a very old alcohol, 55 years old, by Bowmore. So a little peaty, supposedly. Low alcohol, but we felt that there was no peat left. It was very attenuated, sort of nothing really, no character, not a lot of personality. And at the same time, it was a bit sharp. So the word that came to mind was incongruous, let's say, or a little bit of a contradiction. And that's also something, that we wanted to share with everyone. And now we're going back to the video segment. I just wanted to give you a hint with this picture of this amazing trio by Laphroaig of the kind of things you're going to see in that video. See you in a bit. Okay, well, here we have 2 that sort of go together very well. 2 Laphroaig, both 40-year-olds, one in sherry casks, this one here, and one in bourbon casks. As we've discussed before, both from 1981. So as we've discussed before, you know, people use, I mean, there's tons of other casks, but the two most common casks are the bourbon and the sherry casks. And what's interesting here is we see the difference already in the color, and that's coming strictly from the cask. Both have 46% about alcohol, so not super alcohol. As we also know, I think a lot of the alcohol evaporates even before the rest of the liquid. So to maintain alcohol, it's very, very hard to maintain a high level of alcohol over 40 years. I would imagine these was distilled in 81 and bottled in 21. So let's see together what we have here. And again, as you can imagine, these are incredibly rare alcohols. I mean, you know, the prices go into thousands of dollars, and some of them in the multiple of that. But that's not really the point. The point is to be able to get this experience and see what that means for us. I'm going to start with a sherry cask. Well, actually, I'm going to start with the bourbon cask. So it's very, very, I mean, of course, it's very smooth because of the age, but it's also still very alive, which is really interesting in these old spirits. And the alcohol is very present, even though it's only 46% only. You can feel some of the smokiness, you know, kind of on the nose. It's still very, very present. I mean, it tastes almost like a younger malt. And again, the experience we had with all of these is the quality is such that the freshness and the liveliness are still there. We're going to add a drop of water. This is often helpful in some of these to bring up the taste and open up. Let's say that's what this dropper for. Open up the taste. We have 2 drops here, and let's see. It really right away kind of just gives you a little bit of a wider palette of scents and aromas, which is really very, very nice. On the tongue is a bit less alcohol, very, very nice length. The peat is just subdued. This is Laphroaig is, of course, one of the Scotch from Islay or Islay. They say Islay. And so it's really one of the kings of peat with Talisker, with Lagavulin, and with Ardbeg and some of the other. But this is just really the whole thing. Again, age brings it all together, mellow it down, but at the same time enhance the flavor. And there's nothing you could do to replicate that. And so that's just incredibly fine. Let's look at the cherry one. I anticipate that it's going to have a different tones, let's say. Again, you see the color here, very dark. 40 years in a sherry cask. And right away you get a little bit more sweetness, even though this is a peaty alcohol as well. So you get some honey, caramel, a bit more of a sweet nuttiness, maybe dried fruit. You know, in the Brits they say fruit cake, which is kind of a very British thing, but it's got this dried fruit and the sweetness and a little bit of that yeast all melded in together. Definitely caramel. The smokiness is there as well, and it's a very nice combo. We talked about this, about how sherry really helps complement the peatiness of some of these alcohols. It's quite a few tannins also, which is kind of a little bit unusual in these spirits. So the tannins are there, and a little bit of that chocolate aftertaste, really very just incredibly, again, put together. Just stays on the tongue and plays around a little bit with the viscosity that you get from such a high alcohol and all the flavors blending in. Just 2 incredible spirits. I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to taste. And again, he was nice enough to leave all these leftovers, but you know, as it is, not very big quantities to begin with. Cheers, and you know, we're going to start again soon in the next video. Okay, on to the next one. This is still a Laphroaig, part of that trilogy that I showed in one of my pictures. And this is called the 30-year-old Archive Year 2. So I guess it's a second edition. So it's 30-year-old. It's a project. So it's got the special, it's a collection. It's got the special name, you know, the Archive. We're going to pour some, just from the color, I can maybe guess, or maybe I know, that this looks like it could be a sherry cask. And this is a malt that I really loved when we tasted it. So I really wanted to share that with you all. From the beginning, I think I'm gonna add a drop of water. Again, a lot of these may not even exist in the market because they were either projects or they haven't really been bottled in the same way. You may not be able to find a 30-year archive collection. There's a few 36-year-old over there. And so that's kind of what makes this really interesting. Let's see what we have here. Oh, man. The peat is here, but it's very different. It's kind of it's much less sharp, even though it's very present. So integrated. And we looked into it. So these were Oloroso sherry casks. So one of the really very, not necessarily exclusive, but special sherry casks I use in Spain. You've got the Pedro Jimenez, you've got the Oloroso, you've got the regular sherry cask. And this is Oloroso. It's got that stronger even note, and again, the color you get from that. The peat is so great here. It's really an enhancer with a bit of salinity that also mix in with dried raisins, caramel, and I'm even getting some marzipan note of almonds. So not just your regular almonds, but you get this marzipan, which is half bitter, half sweet. Coffee. I mean, the even a bit of orange zest. I think this is just amazing. I mean, this is a spirit, as they like to say. It's a malt where everything comes together and things keep adding and building on top of each other. So it's kind of very hard to pick them all apart. And that's an exercise that we like to do. We want to identify everything we feel. But at the end of the day, what is the overall feeling? What's the overall impression? And it's one of just penetrating alcohol and peat that really covers your whole palate, and that gets enhanced by all these sweet and bitter, fruity and candied notes that sort of give you this kind of, it's like an orchestra. I mean, you don't sit there and then try to pin every different instrument, but they kind of all work together well. And this is one of those where the result is just really incredible. And again, there's not a lot to taste here, so I took my one sip, and I'll have one sip left for later. Okay, there's a couple more coming here, so bear with me. Thanks. Okay, here we are. This is really, I think, my wow malt of the evening, and it's by Bowmore, another peaty sort of alcohol maker on Islay. And Bowmore is a little less boom than, like, you know, Laphroaig or some of the others. And this was just incredible when I first tasted it. It's called ARC, 52 years old. So, and you can look it up. This is a joint project, you know, with Aston Martin, which is, you know, interesting because, of course, we're talking luxury and stuff. Look at this, the bottle it comes in, and that's the shape of the ARC. It's got the engravings from Aston Martin on it. You can look this up in online, and you see that beautiful bottle. But this being said, this is 52 years old again in the same barrels, so it's really quite incredible. And then let's just see what we have here. I think the color is very light. It's not a lot of alcohol. It's 42%. Again, the alcohol dissipates. And this is one where we both had this really strong note of exotic fruits, you know, lychee, mango. The peat is kind of almost gone, but it doesn't really take anything away because I think it still provides a little bit of a kind of core, an underpinning that goes through everything. And then there's sweetness in it. There's a bit of yeast, some of that bread yeast, but I think it really comes from yeast. But you feel it in some wines and not in others. In some alcohols and some of the others here, it gives you that roundness that sort of is, kind of comforting, let's say, and friendly. The notes here are a lot sharper than some of the others. Again, this is a 52-year. It's got no right to be sharp. But this is what's incredible. Because of the fruitiness and the sort of these exotic notes, it gives us the liveliness that sometimes you find in an 8-year-old malt, which I really like too, because they're fresh, they're lively, they're just kind of, they're really out there, and you don't have to work too hard to figure out what came from where. And this was what, to us, was this amazing contrast between the age and the life and the vivacity that was still in this thing. And so it's just really really open. The alcohol is not a high alcohol, but it's very continuous, and stays. That's what stays sort of at the end on your tongue, and the whole thing is just wow. Again, one more. Okay, we're down to the last one here, and this was very interesting because this is not a $10, $15, $20,000 malt. This is just a American bourbon by Maker's Mark. And just doesn't mean it's not good, but it's just, we're talking, I don't know, $150 a real bottle. And this was so interesting because this was a new project by the distillery. And it's, they call it cellar aged, 11 years and 9 months, which is a pretty nice, bit of aging for bourbon. It's 112 proof, 112.6. So we're talking alcohol wise, it's 56 and change. So it's pretty high alcohol. And what's really notable about this, as it was explained to me, because I don't know much about bourbon, is this one is an alcohol, a whiskey that they decided to actually cellar age. A lot of the bourbon in Kentucky apparently is aged in barns, like out there. So it's subject to all the temperature variations and what have you. But for this one, they blasted the cellar in the rock, which you see a lot of in maybe California and in France for the different brandies and for the wine. But in Kentucky, apparently they don't do that. And so this was done at a stable temperature for 11 years, and you get this maturity you will get from some of the cellars you have in Scotland and in some other places. So let's taste this thing together. I mean, I've tasted before, as you can tell, more than once. But here we are. Just beautiful color, and the glass, the cut glass, really highlights that. And this is a glass for this, which is really incredible. And again, I wanted to finish on this note to show that you can find that quality in a lot of different places. The nose is a bit muted. Let's open it up here a little bit, see if we can help with that. But I know that I had another wow when I was drinking it. It's starting to open up here, and again, it's just the alcohol is very present, as you can imagine, and then some of the caramel and the sweetness you expect in a bourbon. It is, as we say in French, very, very gourmand. It's like a dessert. You want to sit here, you want to chew it. It's sweet, but not too sweet. It's full. It's got the alcohol, so you can't have too much of it. But it also has a bit of spiciness. You can feel some nutmeg, some rum. I mean, it really makes me think of rum quite a bit. And it has this just bite of the alcohol that really tones down the sweetness, which makes it into a bourbon that I can like and that I do like quite a bit, even though, as we discussed before, I find bourbons in general, because of the corn made out of corn, mostly at least 50%. This is another thing I learned, not 100%. So I don't know what's the makeup of this one, but that is just really just incredible. Highly recommended and delicious. You can drink this like with an apple pie after dinner, or with something like this that is just, it really calls for something like that more than just something salty or some nuts or what have you. Anyway, on this, that was an incredible experience for me, and I hope you got a little bit of a feel for it. Cheers, and see you soon.